Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVeigh, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. After today's interview, if you would like to continue the conversation of all things metaphysical, paranormal, and supernatural, feel free to join the private UMO group by clicking on the link above on the banner. And today, our guest is Paul, our returning guest. Hello.
Hello, Julie. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. This is going to be a good conversation. One of my favorite topics, as you know, and a topic that's kind of misunderstood and still mysterious to a lot of people, even who practice these techniques. So, I mean, you've been on before, but do you want to go ahead and give a little bit of background on who you are so the new viewers can know about Paul?
All right. So myself and my partner, we work as mediums, but in saying that, we work with a lot of spirits, but we also work with extraterrestrials as well. I would suggest that a lot of people also, as they're developing, can astral travel as well, and so I've done a lot of astral travel as well. I've got a few books that are out that people can read for free, a primer of the Zeta race, the Zeta interviews. I've got a website called the-zeta-connection.com, and all of our blog posts and information's on there. We've also got study guides on how to contact spirits and guides, how to actually astral travel as well. So we've got a lot of information that's out there. I put it together primarily because we get asked a lot of questions every day. How do I do this? How do I do that? What does this mean? What's vibration? How do I leave my body? What's a spirit person? Where are spirits? Where are ET?
Right. You guys, you and Cyan, your partner, are very busy and trying to help many. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing this interview, kind of last minute, actually. So that's cool that you guys could just jump on. So let's just start off by explaining, because this is kind of maybe we'll do a part 2 on this. So what is the astral realm?
We've had it explained to us, so I've got my own experience, but I just want to explain it from the Zeta perspective. The Zetas say that the astral realm is the correlation or the conglomerate energy of the human race. It is all of the thought forms that exist. It is every experience that's ever been had by humans. And so because it's continually being fed input, complete input, conscious input, it's continually expanding around the planet. The astral is an undulating experience that people can move into. And that specific vibration of thought and consciousness is available to anybody that's willing to move out of their body into it.
Has this astral realm, it came into existence, would you say, might be a little more complicated, as humans became self-aware humans, and then the whole spirit realm thing and the reincarnation and all of that began? Is that when the astral realm started to take form, or was it even before that?
I think that everything always exists. This is the thing, but it could just be in its infancy, and then as it starts to become more populated with consciousness, as it becomes more populated with thoughts, emotions, dream states, then of course these things start to expand. The Zetas told us about a year ago there was going to be a massive expansion in the astral realm, and we've seen that taking place.
Do you know why? Why would it all of a sudden expand like that?
Yeah, well, the thing is that when 2 years ago, we all know that stuff happened on the planet, and people started to be isolated because of that. And of course, people now started to have to be introverts, start to think about the things what matters to them. Then, of course, we started to have the UFO or UAP disclosure, which means that people now have to also be confronted with the possibility of extraterrestrial life. And all of this information was then now on mainstream media. This means that all of this input into the astral realm caused another expansive, because if you're in denial about something, even your denial is in the astral. But denial does not have the same energetic processes as acceptance. Acceptance creates, like you talk about love, you know, the heart space, the heart, you know, exudes energetic frequency, vibration. Notice if you're actually angry about something, you're generally not angry here, you're angry down low in a different area of your body. Yeah. And that's why the function of providing energetic emotional responses to things gives different input into the astral. And of course, there's billions of people on the planet. So at this point in time, with some things that are taking place, there's a lot of love that's going into the astral.
So because of so it sounds like more love and more truth, acceptance of truth, it's expanding the astral.
Absolutely.
That's so interesting. Okay, I didn't, when you'd mentioned that before, I really didn't know what that meant. So can you give a little bit about your experience? What is your experience of being in the astral? When was your first time and how did that happen?
You know, it all started when I was 5. I was laying in bed, the room was quite dark, and you know, you're a child at 5. And I noticed that I was lying under the blankets, and I noticed that my feet were actually touching the ground. And you know how kids skip their feet on the ground, like
yes.
chair? I was doing that, and I rolled over and looked, and I saw my feet sort of bent because I'd rolled over. I was now on an angle, but my feet were actually touching the floor, and I thought, but I can see my feet under the blankets, just sitting there. And so I rolled over again, and I fell out of my body.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, I don't know what this is, but then I looked at my body just laying there. And the interesting thing was, because I had no response to me being out of body, I stayed out of body. And I thought, this is going to be fun, you know, like a little kid. And so I started to walk up and touch walls, and I realized I could push my hands through the walls. And, you know, I was watching my hands going through them. As a child, no fear, of course. It's walking through the walls, walking through the doors. And it was all great until I realized that I got into an area where I couldn't see anything. It was as though I was in complete darkness. And I started to touch the walls. Now, I think at that point in time, a little bit of fear came in as a child because I didn't know what I'd done. And because of that fear, it then stopped me from moving through these physical structures. I then just laid down. I laid down in the hallway where I was. And when I awoke in the morning, my body had found me laying in the hallway. It had come to me.
Okay. Okay. That makes me think of all kinds of things. I can't tell you how many times I found my 2-year-old in the hallway sleeping. Anyway, so that was your first experience, and then did this become a common occurrence? It did.
So because my experiences are mixed in with extraterrestrial contact and spirits and everything, it's really hard to sort of pull everything apart and go, well, this is one definition, this and this and this. But when I was sort of around 17, 18, I started to really practice. I mean, like, I'd say, okay, now I'm going to practice for 4 hours. And so I would get up and wait a couple of hours to get a little bit tired, and then lay down on the lounge room floor, cover myself with a sheet so that I, you know, wasn't cold or hot or whatever. And I would cover my eyes over, and then I would spend 4 hours there out of body. And I'd be moving around all of the different dimensional aspects. You know, I'd be in real-time space, which is this 3-dimensional space. So I'd be in that. You can also move into sort of other timelines as well when you're astral. So you can be in what's classed as this 3-dimensional space, which is this room. But this room also existed yesterday. So you can move backwards in time as well. And you can actually, if somebody was here talking a year ago or 10 years ago, you can move back to that time as well.
Okay, first of all, so you're a teenager. How did you know these techniques? You didn't read about them. You just naturally, it came to you?
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about is called now they call it the wake back to bed method.
The what method?
Wake back to bed method. All that means is you get a decent amount of sleep,
Yeah.
You wake up, put the alarm a couple hours before you normally wake up, get some water, walk around for a few minutes, go back to bed, so that your body can still sleep, but you can keep your consciousness aware.
I didn't read anything. I don't know.
You just knew.
It just seemed to be natural to do those sorts of things.
And so you said you could go into this dimension, whatever you want to call it, this third dimension. I think some people call it near Earth.
It's called real-time space.
Real-time space. Okay. But you said you can go backward in time, in a sense. And what about forward?
You're going back into what already exists. Remember, it's the astral.
Could you go forward in time as well, or no?
I've not been able to, no.
Okay.
I have tried plenty of times, don't get me wrong. I love to try anything. I'll try and view timelines in the future, the now process. Anything that someone tells me you can't do, I'll try. Yeah.
So you could go to different, when you say different timelines, all you mean is something that happened in the past. You don't mean an alternate parallel timeline, do you?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean parallel timelines as well. I have been.
And that, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so a parallel timeline, imagine that me living now, I'm one person. And of course, I exist or can exist infinitely on multiple timelines either side of me. Today, Paul, on this timeline here, he's sitting here talking to you, but possibly with just a slight variation in personality. Yeah. Now, because it's an asynchronous environment, which means that we could be moving at different speeds on all these different timelines. As I move in 5 minutes' time forward, I may suddenly come in contact with that timeline and I'll experience deja vu. Because Paul, that's the asynchronous Paul on the secondary timeline, could be moving ahead of me, and I'm moving vibrationally, but next to that person as well. So these concepts are a little bit more sort of intermediate, advanced level concepts, but
yes, yeah, we can get into that maybe another time a little more. But how about just what is the difference between, because you hear these three terms, going out of body, or OBE, astral projection, and astral travel?
Yeah, I think that I could say that they're probably all the same, but they're just different perspectives of doing the same thing. You're either out in your body or you're out of your body. Yeah, out of body experience, astral projection, all these things. The only one I would say that I've done myself and so has Cyan is, and so have many other people, is using astral eyes to then extend where you're going. There's a name for it, I can't remember what it is now, but it's a visualization technique using astral eyes. It's used to train people who have vision difficulties.
Not remote viewing.
No, no, this is not remote viewing. This is, you've actually got a complete mirror image of your physical form, but in the astral. So you're able to actually push your consciousness forward and view with your astral eyes. Now, your astral eyes don't see in the physical sense as the physical eyes do within a light framework. They can see into vibratory states. And so you're able to extensualize or extend your eyesight to anywhere you want to. Now, people go, that's remote viewing. No, because remote viewing could be sitting there with a pen and paper and using your consciousness, you extend your consciousness to another space or another address space or whatever.
Well, when you say astral eyes, is that the same thing as when someone says third eye? You're using your third eye? No, that's different. No. Okay.
Third eye is to do with the pituitary gland, and it's also to do with the third eye chakra energy level, and it's to do with your psychic abilities. So we know that the etheric body has within it the 7 chakra systems, but of course there are more chakras, and the rest of the body has energy centers called meridians. These chakra points are imbued with specific levels of consciousness and energy. That's the first thing, vibration. but they're also linked to our physical organs.
Mm.
The heart chakra, named appropriately, solar plexus chakra, sacral, root chakra, crown chakra, voice, throat chakra. They're specific energy centers that are related to that. Now, there's debate about, you know, how many actually exist, you know, and that's okay. But if we just stick with the primary chakra system, we can understand that these chakras are designed for specific functionality within the human body.
You speak of the etheric body. Is that the body that goes out of the body when we astral travel? Or, because some people say astral body.
Yeah. So it depends which, you know, like if you are sort of a Hindu, you might believe that there's a mental body, an emotional body, this body, or that body. There's multiple bodies.
Right.
I see Astralling as being more like, I've got an etheric body, and my etheric body is my energetic body that is a mirror image copy of my physical body. When we talk about going out, we're actually stepping out in consciousness. That's why we're able to bilocate. So we're physically in one space, but of course, consciously, we can be in another space as well. As you would be anyway before you were born. Remember? Before you were born, you were in spirit realm or wherever it is that you come from. Then, of course, you then move into the physical space, exist within the physical form. You're still in bilocation, but once again, now I'll come back to my words, symbiotic relationship. You've got a spirit person that's existing in the physical form.
So the etheric body, sorry to go back to this, just to clarify, when I go out of body consciously, my consciousness, and then I can manifest perhaps in a, whatever I want to, an orb or an astral body. Yeah. My etheric body remains in my physical body?
Your etheric body is completely
intertwined,
encasing the physical, but it's also integrated with it. The astral is consciousness, and as you just rightly said, you can project yourself into any form that you want. So sometimes when I step out, I'll look at my astral hands and I'll touch them. And interestingly, I noticed that it felt exactly like my physical hands. Right? So it's not really a body. It's just consciousness presenting itself as a form that you understand.
Some might say then the etheric body is the energy body. Yeah. Do you use that same terminology?
I'm quite happy. You know, I'm not going to split hairs over terminology. It's either about being out of your body or being in your body. You know, like.
Can you explain the difference between astral projection and lucid dreaming?
Okay. So when we dream, we go into multiple different types of non-REM and REM state sleep cycles. And there's probably about 3 to 6 cycles that we go through. When we are dreaming, we're generally not aware that we're dreaming, but if we move into a state where we're conscious of our dream states, that's classed as lucid dreaming. And lucid dreaming then means that we're able to take control of what's going on within the dream state. Mm-hmm. You know? The other one is also sleep paralysis that a lot of people also mistake for being out of body. So they'll feel like they're trapped, but of course their physical body is actually placed into an emphasized state when you're asleep so that you don't act out physically, you know, what you're dreaming. And of course you wake up and your subconscious mind is presenting all of its abstract information to you in a dream state, but because you're awake now, you can experience night terrors, you can experience, you know, many, many different possibilities. Consciousness is very interesting in what it can do to itself.
So is it correct to say that sleep paralysis, if you recognize that you're in sleep paralysis, that can be used as a tool or technique to go out of body?
You could, but you'd have to be able to train yourself to bypass what's taking place. So when we move into an astral state, the first thing we're doing is, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but it's more about using induction methods to actually get the body to move into a very sleep state, a physical sleep state. But because we're using consciousness to do that, we're actually in total control. When we have a sleep paralysis episode, we wake up and our body is asleep. So they're sort of similar, but they're different because one, there seems little control, and the other one is there's a lot of control. But you can teach yourself anything. This is the thing. If you're willing to, say you're a person that is having a lot of sleep paralysis, and I went through this myself, you can train yourself to do anything that you want to, but you have to have the time and the effort to do that.
Why does the astral exist? Why does the astral realm? We kind of explained what it was, but why? Why do we need that? What's the purpose?
Okay, so Julie, we think about it this way. If I've got a radio in front of me, I can't see any of the radio waves around me, but if I flick through the channels, I can actually pick up each of the radio stations. We can't see these radio waves around us. They exist. And of course, they always exist. So once we speak or once we send out a signal, although you may no longer hear it, these waves continually move, and they move into different vibratory spaces. And so the astral exists because we're feeding into it, we're giving it input.
It sounds like it's just part of reality.
Well, it's part of the three-dimensional space. And the three-dimensional space is based around consciousness. We know that if you drill down to some cellular matter, we go down to energy, vibratory states, string theory, quantum states. We go down, we look, and what do we find? We find space.
Can you, so who can, this is an important question. Everybody wants to know if anyone can do this, who can travel there? Who can go there?
If you're alive and breathing, anyone can go there.
Animals? Do animals go there? Consciously, I guess I would say.
The thing is, you know, who's able to actually talk to an animal and get them to speak back? We can only make an assumption that if we can do it and we have consciousness and they also have consciousness, we know that to be true. They show intelligence. Crows are very intelligent birds. Pigs, they're also highly intelligent as well. They have consciousness, and of course, if we can do it, then they can do it as well.
I wonder, because some of these higher conscious, more self-aware animals, I wonder if they do it consciously, because I imagine they're all doing it unconsciously, but just curious.
It's a good question. I don't think anybody can answer it. We can just, unfortunately, have to make an assumption that, well, we're living in a matrix that is created by consciousness. And if everything within that has consciousness, then of course it can all perform the same functions.
And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but it doesn't sound like psychic ability, that this has anything to do with your psychic ability to be able to go, because someone might say, well, I don't have any psychic abilities, I'm not going to be able to go out of body. But they're two different things.
Yeah, so, well, okay. Well, it's only because we're placing everything in boxes. That's the first thing. But psychic ability is, generally, it's a defined ability to focus on an energetic pattern and read the energetic pattern and gain information. So someone goes for a psychic read, they focus on the person or some physical, ring or something, or watch, and they are able to read information from it. Obviously, that's called psychometry, but you're still using your psychic abilities just to read energy. So the energy of this cup, it's your psychic ability. Who held this cup? What was the secondary person prior to me, myself, using this cup? Because their energy is still residual around us. So that's psychic. But the thing is that psychic ability is about using that defined process to actually read energy, whereas astral is about separation from the physical form and moving into three-dimensional, into interdimensional spaces.
Would you say though, do you have to have some kind of understanding of your own energy and how it works to move out of body? Like how hard is it to get into the astral, and how does that play into it, and being able to move my own energy, for example?
Yeah. Some people, I believe, just naturally astral travelers, and they, would not struggle at all. It depends as well on what is happening in your life. So if you're having issues and you may have problems moving out of astral into the astral because of just your mind's too busy or whatever. Other people, and I know that if I look on some of social media platforms and have a look at the hundreds of thousands of people that are trying to astral travel and to travel, that there's a lot of questions about how do I do this, how do I do that. Some people say, oh, you just do this and make it sound really easy. And then the other 100 people go, well, I can't do that. Okay? It would be nice. I think I always say in interviews about mediumship. Mediumship's like people singing, isn't it? Everyone can sing. Some people sing badly, other people sing better, and some people sing really well. Some people are professional singers, and that would be the same for astraling as well. Some people, everybody can astral, but how well you can do that. So I'll give you an example.
I don't know if you're tone deaf. I just don't know if you can be taught to
But
sing.
you know what? You can still sing badly though. That's fine.
You can sing.
You know,
True.
it
Yep.
is
If you
what
have
it
a
is.
voice, yeah.
You know, the thing is with astraling is you probably astral every night, but you basically are not aware of it. So
Yeah, I've heard that.
so I find with myself that I sit about 3 inches consciously above myself. Now, I know this because I went and got an MRI done many years ago, and when I was in the machine, I actually was up and out, and this machine was pulling me out of my physical body, and I was able to turn my head around even though I was physically laying down. Also, same thing happened to Cyan, and she asked me about it when she had an MRI as well, that she was also extended out of her body as well. And I actually said to the person who was operating the machine when I got out, I said, that's a really good machine for pulling you out of your body. She goes, I don't know.
Oh no.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Well, what a funny thing. Yeah, that's really so you're saying that you feel like your consciousness is always kind of a little bit outside of your body. Why is that then?
Well, it always is. You see, the thing is that, remember, you may remember that I've spoken to you before about the observer effect. And so the observer effect is where if I ask you, what were you doing yesterday at 12 o'clock? You go, oh, I saw myself having lunch. Now, how did you see yourself having lunch? So we are observing ourselves 24 hours a day, even when we're asleep. Because of that capacity, it shows us that consciousness not just exists within the mind, but it exists and permeates us all the way from the front all the way through to the back and to the sides. Consciousness is all around us. I'll give you an example. You could be walking down the street and think somebody's watching me, and turn around and look, and there's somebody 50 meters away watching you. That's the observer effect. Even being observed, you can notice that you're being observed as well. So consciousness isn't what people want to, we do need definitions for consciousness, and consciousness needs to be placed into boxes so we can discuss certain things. But consciousness itself actually defies explanation. There isn't anybody that can explain fully what consciousness is. We can put frameworks around consciousness, we can put words to it, but nobody can actually say, look, this is consciousness.
I'm still curious though why you and Cyan, for example, would be pulled, and maybe if I did an MRI, I wouldn't have that same experience. Is that because you're mediums? Is it because you're working with consciousness so much on a different level?
I don't know, and maybe once this video goes up, anyone that has had that experience could comment underneath, so we can get some sort of gauges, and how many people have had magnetic resonance imagery or an MRI, and being able to feel like they were being moved out of the physical form.
Yeah, I mean, I know a few people who have had MRIs. They never said anything about that to me, but
well, I think
that's
we're probably
interesting.
pretty sensitive to energy as well. We can sense any shifts around us.
Yeah. What sorts of things exist in the astral that we should be aware of?
Every single thought you've ever had, Julie, exists in the astral. Every thought that a person's ever had, every emotion that a person has ever had, every creation, every fantasy, every fairy, you know, every dragon, every this, every that. And so when you move into the astral, the capacity for you to experience an interaction with an extraterrestrial or a dragon or a butterfly or whatever exists there because it's already been thought of.
So anything in our imagination or anyone else's imagination, I personally could run into those things when I'm out of body. Somebody else's. So would you say that all our emotions, do our emotions manifest into some kind of physical creation?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they do?
They like, you know, we see orbs, they can manifest as distortions in the astral as well. Here's another thing. When people are actually astraling, I've caught people astraling into the house, and I can see them as shadow people around the walls. I've also caught people astraling into the house as well, and what they do is they present as a distortion, and I've said to them, I know who you are, I can see you, and you need to leave. I've then contacted them physically, rang them and said, why did you astral into my house? Only because I actually knew that person that did it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
I'm teasing. But now I know that if I go there, maybe you'll recognize me. But I won't go there unless invited.
Well, this is the thing, you see, all of us have to say that we set our boundaries around our space, because people will try to astral in, and other people say, you know, are you aware when somebody's remote viewing you? Yes, absolutely. And so are other people. You know, you need to be aware of all these things because we're working with consciousness.
But what about when we unconsciously travel out of our body, like we were saying, every night we travel outside of our body unconsciously, and I don't know if that means lucid. Well, no, that wouldn't be lucid dreaming. Does that mean dreaming or astral projecting outside our body unconsciously?
So when I said before that everybody astrals, I mean you generally sit out of your body, you sit above your physical body. So this is your physical body, you sit here.
Okay.
And you vibrate at a different frequency than the physical body, because it is, I know that this is probably a concept that some people won't agree with, that's okay. It's a lot of work for the consciousness to exist within the physical form. The physical form, the three-dimensional space, is very, very slow. Consciousness, which we say is astral consciousness, actually has to lower its vibrational space to actually hold the physical form. When we move out of our bodies at night when we're asleep, we vibrate at a different frequency.
Okay. We're like getting a break. Our consciousness is getting a break from our 3D
consciousness is getting a break. Yeah, absolutely.
Body.
It's taken a break.
That's so interesting.
The thing is, though, is that as you are out, you're also in the astral. And the astral, that means that the astral can bleed into your dream state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I've talked to more than one person who astrals, and they've said they see their spouse or their kids hovering above their body.
There you go.
Their astral body hovering above their body. That's pretty interesting.
Even to the point that, because I can see people's etheric bodies, astral bodies, or whatever body you want to call it, you'll see somebody sitting there like this, and this hand will separate from the physical hand and bend backwards and all around. It's the etheric hand doing that while the person's, say, in a trance state, which means that they're doing mediumship. But we see that all the time, especially in healings, when we're doing healings with people, we'll see the etheric parts of the body that will undulate, move, and twist around as they're releasing all of the processes that are causing the person to be under.
Okay, I don't want to complicate things, but when you say etheric body, but I will, when you say etheric body and you see it kind of moving, I'm thinking that's the astral body, that the one that gets up out of bed. But you said the etheric body, no, that's kind of different. It's intertwined and stays connected to the physical.
you've got to understand, like the etheric, the astral body is a body that you create. If I move out of the astral and I don't need hands, then I don't have any.
Right, true.
Whereas the etheric body is a mirror image of the physical body.
That's always there. Okay, that's not something I can create. That's there.
Yeah.
So for example, which happens to me often when I'm trying to project, I am not able to get out of my body, but I do lift my non-physical arms, and I'm like, ooh, these feel solid. I'll lift my leg and be like, oh, I can feel my leg. So would you call that my etheric body then?
No, that's what I would suggest is your astral body.
Okay. Little complicated, but during healings, you're saying you'll see their etheric body do stuff.
Doing that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like the ocean. Okay, there's the surface and here's the sand. There's infinite grades of levels within it, but it's still the ocean. And the same as you're still the physical form, but you have infinite levels of vibratory states. And what we've done is we've gone, well, this is the astral, this is the etheric, this is that. But all it does really is complicates the fact that we're just talking about the ocean.
But, you know, analytical thinkers like me love to have all the, give me all the detail, and then I'll blend it later, and realize it's all the ocean on one level, but also want to know the different levels.
I think if you sort of say, well, okay, it's all the ocean, you let go of all the concepts and then you can just step out.
You'd think.
Well, that's what I did as a 5-year-old. I didn't know the concepts.
Yes, true. Absolutely. And that makes sense. I have heard, others talk about when they were a child, they will have memories. Yeah. I just go out of body and I didn't know what I was doing. I just be going around my room. What are the benefits of us consciously traveling out of body? Like, is healing easier to do with yourself when you're out of body, or like what are the benefits?
If you were looking to do healing when you were out of body, you'd have to be turning around and looking at your physical body and reading using your consciousness, your astral form, the etheric body. You'd have to be reading and looking at that, but we can do that in body as well. So you can read your own energy body. You can sense energy here. You can put your hands together and sense energy between it. You don't need to be outside, but the benefits of astralling are actually to do with experience and journey. We are able to leave the three-dimensional space behind and move into the 11 possible different interdimensional states. I knew when I was probably 18 that there were 11 different dimensions because I'd been into many of them. And the difference was that as I was entering into these different vibrational spaces like radio stations, I was having to learn about what it was like to be in there, what rules applied, or were there no rules? And was everything completely different and these rules no longer applied?
So you say, when you say 11 dimensions, are you talking about 11 frequencies?
Yeah, we'll just say 11 different vibrational frequency states, yeah.
And it's like you said, you sort of like changing a radio station and the physics change. Yeah. Each different frequency is different kinds of physiology or different kinds of...
I'll give you an example. You step out of your body and you're standing in your bedroom. That's your three-dimensional space all the time. I said before that you could step out and you can also step out into a different time frame. You're no longer in real-time space, you're in a timeline space. You may step out of your body, but step straight into a fifth-dimensional space, where you're able to move backwards and forwards along the timeline. As you move up into the interdimensional states, because no longer are related to, infinite universes, parallel universes, all these things, what's happening is that you're able to experience non-corporeal entities, interdimensional beings, and you're able to interact with them within their consciousness space.
And when we travel out, I guess the only way to know what the limitations are is by experimenting.
Yeah.
Just see what you can do and what you can't do while you're there, I suppose. Because I've been in spaces where I just can't seem to take off in flight, in spaces where I can't seem to go through the wall. Other times it's really easy, I'm flying through walls, you know.
Yeah.
It changes. And I didn't know if that meant that had something to do with my own energy or the energy of the space I was in experiencing.
It'll probably be depending on what your subconscious filters are.
Mm.
So we have filtering systems, and they're within our subconscious mind. It's like your autonomic systems. Your heart beats under an autonomic process. You breathe under an autonomic process. You don't have to consciously sit there and go beat, beat, or
Yeah.
breathe. And so because we've got these deep subconscious autonomic processes, we've also got autonomic filtering processes of things that are relate around fight or flight, things about fear and love. And so when we then move into these different spaces, we've taken with us all of our consciousness with us. And that consciousness, still attached back by thread to the physical form, still has all those mechanisms in play. You would know if you're in the astral, if you suddenly sense that something's not right, or if maybe I shouldn't go there, or I don't know what your experience is in the astral. That's the thing, Julie. For myself, though, I know what the experience that I've had are just one small part of what's possible.
Yeah.
Nobody has, as I say, in all things that we talk about, nobody has all the answers, but we can have experiences, and that's what we talk about.
I'm curious, you mentioned something about closing. You need to close off when you come back to body. Can you explain that a little bit in more detail?
Look, I'll give you an example. And I mean, this is what I do. I mean, people don't have to do this, but when I'm consciously going out of body, I have to go through a process to create the separation. I'll go out, do whatever I want to do, have a look around, experience. And then when I come back, I actually reverse the process. So I come back in the body, and then I monitor my vibrational state so that it actually is exactly the same as when I went into it. And the reason is because if this is me and I'm out of phase, when I come back in, I've got to realign myself. If I stay out of phase, it means that there's the capacity for anything in the astral to be coming back with me, right? Now, people may go, oh, that's never happened to me. That's fine. I hear this from mediums all the time. Oh, that's never happened to me about spirit people. And then next thing the phone rings and someone says, guess what just happened to me? You know, because that's right, you know. So from my perspective, it's not about fear. It's about common sense. If we're going to go out one way, then let's come back the same way, and let's put ourselves back to a position where we were before we astral, so that we don't bring back those things that exist. And there's multiple names for things that exist in the astral. These thought forms, these servitors, these, I think they're called tuplars as well, minds, separate minds, all these sorts of things. Subconscious spirits. There's plenty of things that exist there.
Yeah, I remember one a traveler I talked to, and she thought she had come fully back to body, but she physically got in her car, went to go pick up her son from school, if I'm remembering correctly, and then she found out from another friend that she was still partially out of body because she was visiting a friend. So she had not brought all her consciousness back when she came back to body.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what you call closing off. So closing off, trying to get back into alignment, I guess, with your body.
That's right. Yeah.
Because usually, I mean, I don't go through the process personally of, all right, let me go back to I know some people do, go back to my home, go see my body, go back, slide into the body. I'm usually trying to stay out, and it's pulling me back, and then I'm just back in body. Like, oh, I know I can feel I'm going back in body.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes I'll feel the vibrations. Sometimes I won't when I find myself back there. Speaking of vibrations, so what are they, and is this something that you have to have? Because some people say, oh, I'm not getting the vibrations, I'm never going to get out of body.
This is where I think we need to discuss induction methods. Okay.
Okay.
Explain to me how you would, as an example for your viewers, how would you move out of body?
Generally, it's that wake back to bed method, and I will either, sometimes I won't feel vibrations and sometimes I will, but I will know that my physical body is asleep, and I will have enough awareness left in me to be able to go, okay, I'm gonna lift, I'm gonna jump out, roll out, you know, sometimes float out. I've floated out a few times.
Yeah. So, of course, I didn't know any of this when I first started. So what I did was I used induction methods. And so I would say to myself for an hour or so before I started Astralling, I'm going to astral travel. I'm going to astral travel. I'm going to leave my body. And I would just keep saying it. And I would be programming my consciousness so that I would then lay down and I would start from the bottom of my feet, and I would say, I can no longer feel my feet. And I would work my way up and I would send my body to sleep. I was still very much cognitively aware and I was awake. Yeah. And I would then keep dropping my body further and further and further down. And the deeper the physical sleep state became, the more I noticed the separation between the physical me and the conscious person, Paul. I would then be moving towards what seemed to be like an edge of light within myself. At that point, I would be hearing around me all this hissing, cracking, popping, all these sorts of noises. And your mind is very, very relaxed as it's happening. Now, because you've already pre-programmed your mind to know that you're going to do this, you're able to then say, and I'll give you an example, say that you had said that the word or the key induction word was chair. And you've said chair means to astral. You've said it to yourself multiple times, and over the weeks or months, you've said that word chair. Now, you wouldn't use the word chair because it could be a word that anyone could say to you. So you'd choose an induction word or method that nobody would say.
Right.
When you're ready to go, you then say your trigger word, and that allows you to just move out.
That's cool. That sounds like when you hypnotize somebody, it's like that magic word.
Yeah.
I do that too, as far as the pre-condition my subconscious. I will astral travel. I easily go out of body. It's like I'm talking to myself and I tell myself these things. And I know a lot of people hear the hissing and the noises and jet engine or all kinds of things. And I don't think I've ever really heard those. I've heard music, beautiful music, and I've heard lots of talking and lots of radio stations and TV stations and all kinds of stuff. That's what I usually hear right before it is.
Yeah, and that's because you're moving up through frequency, and quite often we're able to hear people speaking in the astral because they've already spoken and those words now exist in the astral. Or we can also be diverting off into a different area and we can be moving towards spirit realm as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never really taken back conversations with me back to body when I've come back. Foreign language, I'll hear people speaking in foreign languages, and it sounds very clear. It's clear as if I'm, hearing you through my headphone, kind of clear and sharp. But yeah, and then I start to feel that separation. I'll feel it either when I personally feel like I'm separating, I'll feel vibrations, or I'll feel like a floaty, almost feel my copy body starting to float up.
We can say that the astral is, if you've got the planet with everything on it, you've got that in the astral. When you move physically into the astral. You're just moving into a copy of what already exists.
Hmm.
And that's why
And
you can hear all of the voices. You can experience all of the things. You can travel anywhere you want to. It just depends on what space you want to move through. And of course, this is why we need to talk about things like guides. Because if you don't,
what about guides?
yeah, we can talk about guides. So the big thing for me was I was moving into these three-dimensional spaces and thinking to myself, what happens if I ever come across a situation that I can't handle? Should I really worry about that? Because I thought, well, I'm consciousness. So, yeah, I don't know, can, anything really happen to me? And then I never really worried about it too much, but then I started thinking, well, maybe what I should be doing is just trying to contact a guide in the astral. Yeah. So I set the intention, and through meditation, I started to come across different, beings that would sort of be more supportive of moving into the astral. And so, not that I saw them when I went into the astral, but I spoke to them pre-exit. So pre-exiting the physical body, I was able to say to them,
while you're in the altered state.
Yeah. Okay, we're about to do this thing. Give me a hand. Let's go. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And before we are running out of time, this is going by too fast. Spirit realm, loved ones. Okay, I know a lot of people who want to travel out of their body to speak to their loved ones, not a thought form of their loved ones. Their loved one who is generally on the spirit realm, but from what I understand, when you astral, you can't go to the vibration of the spirit realm.
I know that many people say that the astral is sort of, if you move up through the astral, you're moving up through spirit realm. Yeah, and I understand that. And in the end, there really is no separation between, consciousness and, spirit people. But I personally understand as a medium that I can just talk to spirit people while I'm sitting here in my physical form. But I'm not hearing all of the people speaking in different languages in the astral. Yeah. So I have complete separation between the astral and spirit realm. And I understand when I go into the astral that I won't be talking to my guides. My guides won't be in the astral realm talking to me. Whereas if I want to talk to them, I just go into the spirit realm. It's just a different frequency.
Well, differentiate, if you will, because you just mentioned that when you're in an altered state and you want an astral guide, how is that different from what you were just talking about? Is it spirit guides?
Yeah, I did say though that when I moved into the astral, I wouldn't be seeing that guide. I would have been consciously, I guess in some respects, the guide would have been one that I met through a meditative state. It hasn't really been evidenced, because these guides are probably more like AI. I guess you could say that they were AI in the astral. Yeah.
Oh.
Whereas guides that exist in spirit realm are people that have actually lived physical lives, transitioned, and now live in the
Okay. So your astral guide that you met in the altered state that can kind of show you the astral ropes did not live a human life.
Generally, no, and that's what I'm saying. I've not met my guides that I know quite well in any of the astral spaces.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that that's not possible for anyone else. I'm just saying for me, who hasn't read a lot of things about that other people have said about astralling at all, that was just my experience. And that's why I wrote that study guide, because I thought, well, if I just work this out on my own over many years, maybe I'll just put something together that talks about how just to do it with some pictures and, different definitions of astral and those sorts of things.
The study guide is on your website?
Yeah.
Is that where we can get it?
Yeah.
Can you, of course, I'm going to put the links in the description, but go ahead and tell us the website again.
the-zeta-connection.com, thezetaconnection.com, with some dashes in it.
Cool. So Okay, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I think we covered quite a bit in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Is there anything, I know you and I were coming up with questions. Is there anything else you think like, oh, we should have mentioned that?
Well, I think that, this is basically one that we've talked about for beginners. I think that we need to do one for people that are probably more advanced,
Okay.
intermediate or experienced ones, where we talk about conversations, heterodyning conversations with entities, interdimensional travel, what exists within those interdimensional spaces, what are some of the laws that apply in different spaces as well.
Yes, that would be great. And I appreciate you, Paul. And Cyan, I know you're over there somewhere. So I appreciate you guys. You just give a lot of your time to these kinds of things to help us. And thank you.
That's okay. We love doing it.
And thank you to everyone watching. This has been Julie McVeigh with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And please join us next time for another fascinating interview. And if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. And if you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel. And I hope you're having a wonderful day or evening wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. Bye, everyone.